keeping calm. Okay? Next item is protest for injection well at Frank's Run. Anybody gonna comment on that?
You can go online and protest that up until the 22nd day of February.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
That, Chris got, the permit application that was applied for by JB, and she was kind enough to share it with me. And one of the things that I found truly interesting, in this permit application, there was a listing of all of the wells that would be serviced by this injection well. So I kind of started looking at it, and what it turns out is, of the wells that are already existing, there are 197 wells in Doddridge County, 272 wells from Ritchie County, 4 wells from Tyler, 6 wells from Wetzel, 1 well from Wood County, and there are also 6 wells that have been permitted but not drilled yet in Tyler County. And then at the bottom of the last page are these wells that are listed by API number and what formation it was drilled to. The last comment on it says, all future wells drilled into the Marcellus Formation will utilize this UIC. And if people don't know what a UIC is, it's an underground injection control well. So it kind of is sort of open-ended, but what really blew me away was the fact that the wells, the number of wells being serviced out of Ritchie exceeds what's in Doddridge. For where this is located, that means that they would probably be trucking in the brine water, which is toxic. So we're looking at either, you're definitely Route 23 is going to be affected. The potential of whatever road they switched old 52, what are they calling that now? Smithton Road, Rock Run, Big Flint, Route 50. So these trucks, the weight limit on these things is pretty high. I mean, they're like the water trucks that you see or the brine trucks. And it just kind of blew me away that the majority of the wells that JB they'll be bringing stuff in from Ritchie County onto Frank's Run.
I gotta ask Jim a question. The commission has no control over that well, am I right or wrong? Is a DEP controls that?
Well, I don't know. I was just going to ask a question. JB is running that as a business.
Oh, okay.
He's getting paid.
Okay.
JB is getting paid for everything that goes down that hole, so much a gallon.
Yeah.
Does he have a business license to operate that well in Doddridge County?
Don't need one.
It's the same thing as a shopping safe. It's a business.
County doesn't have a business license.
Huh?
City has a business license.
The county don't have one, you see. You're losing out, folks.
How do you know the county doesn't have one?
You're losing out. Because that is a business. And you should be getting B&O tax from them.
Are you saying I could open up a business down West Union?
Not in West Union. Out in the county we
Anywhere in
can.
the county, out of city limits.
Can we put that on our agenda?
I'm telling you need a plan. You need somebody to look into this kind of stuff because you're losing money every day.
Thank you, Jim.
Billions of dollars. And while you're losing money and JB is making money, the citizens' taxes continue to go up and our property values continue to go down. It is not fair.
Yeah.
And that was originally an oil well that they was going to drill, and they asked DEP to convert it to a disposal
It was
well.
a Marcellus well.
Right.
They asked for it was a Marcellus well, and they asked for a change of function.
Yeah, it was drilled as a Marcellus well.
Yeah. The other thing Go ahead, Chris, I'm sorry.
What we're trying to get is the DEP to give us a public meeting. If they supposedly get enough comments, they will have to have a public meeting where the DEP comes and JB and answers the public's questions. So I'm hoping, I mean, I can assume this commission could write a letter and ask for a public meeting. I mean, you're part of the county. Maybe that would help us get a public meeting.
22nd.
You have till the 22nd.
When is this?
It's right
At the end of the comment period is February 22nd, and it's at the DEP, and you can actually email to Peterson, James Peterson. You can actually send him an email, which will count, we can give you that information. Right now, there's actually been an incredible response from the community as to people that have written in for this comment period to demand or to have a public meeting. But the other thing people need to be aware of, JB actually went around and tested water wells, which they included in this application. But what's interesting to note is the things they tested for, a lot of the stuff that they tested for does not reflect the pollutants that would be injected into the well. So if the groundwater or the well water is polluted, it's like one of the things they test for is chloroform or E. coli. So they're not testing for the stuff that's going to be injected. So if somebody's water is polluted, they can say, well, it wasn't on the test, but
That's what they
yeah, so they're not establishing a good baseline.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you would provide that email.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Do you have it? Oh, good. Here's an explanation, and we've been sending stuff. Martin is the head of the DEP, and Peterson is the guy that's over the permitting. And what I have recommended to people, if you send an email, ask that they verify that they received it. So there is no question about whether or not they got it. So ask for verification. We've gotten verification from Peterson that email comments count. So we have that as proof.
Okay.
And you can write whatever you want, but it would be nice for you to support.
I think we can probably do that individually. I don't know that we.
You can do it as a governing body if you want to. If you want to do it individually, that's even better.
What I mean is, I don't know that we can do that tonight, so that in time for.
Well, today's the 19th. You have until the 22nd.
We don't have. What I'm saying is, I think we would, to do it as a county commission, we would have. Is this not right, Harry? If we did it as a county commission, we would have to make a motion and approve that.
This is our county's health and our people. We really need to fight. We really need to take care of things like this. We do.
Yeah, we need somebody to speak for us.
Yeah.
We got plenty of people speaking.
About a month ago, it's an ejection fraction.
Injection.
Out at Central Station, something blew about 9 o'clock at night. They didn't have anything to, they called Greenwood out. I have a scanner, I listen to it all the time. They turned Greenwood out, and Greenwood came. They had, the dispatcher at 911 had to call EQT to have somebody come out there. I mean, something like that, with these big trucks going up and down here. They should have somebody there 24/7 monitoring this place, and they don't.
This is deadly. I mean, this stuff they're putting down there is
Do
deadly.
you know the fracking tanker that plunged into Meadhouse Fork Creek that I took the picture of because it was on the news stations going? I'll tell you what, I've got Tom Aloise's email when I asked him, did they test the creek water after a tanker truck carrying that friction reducer fracking fluid type stuff plunged into Meadhouse Fork Creek on its side with vents on top. And he sends me this ridiculous email that says, well, we used our special tools and determined that it was not necessary to test the water. It was a fracking truck laying on its side in Meadhouse Fork Creek.
But yeah,
And they had their
the
damage control people here, they closed the road, they shut the media out, because W. Boyd and WDTV couldn't get down there, and they kept you know, that's how they do this, so we don't know. And I'm gonna put stuff in the paper. Anytime anybody has any problems with drilling, do not call the DEP. Call Eyes on Drilling and the federal people in here, because that's what we need.
And the other thing is they actually shut down the intake for the water plant. Okay? If the intake for the water plant is shut down, and there have been, 2 or 3 separate incidences over the several months, where the intake for the West Union water plant has been shut down, a direct result of truck accidents related to the oil and gas industry that was seeping into the creeks.
Go ahead, Brent.
The episode that Mrs. Pidcock is dealing with, kind of a devil act, but the oil company didn't shut the road down. We, the fire department, did. Now, in their defense, because the friction reducer, when mixed with water, produces a deadly gas. So we quarantined the area. And OES office did shut the stuff down at the water plant as a precautionary until it was seen. There was not very good cooperation from the oil companies that night. In fact, we had 2 Antero guys threaten to arrest them if they did not cooperate.
They did what? We don't have a chance to,
Can I,
this stuff gets out in our county, we're in trouble.
okay, the point is on the floor. They've asked if you all would put a letter of support
Because,
to the DEP supporting them not allowing the well to be used. Yeah, that's what we're getting at, or what they're getting at.
Actually, all we're asking for, a public meeting so that the public has an open forum to ask the DEP questions and also to ask J and B to answer questions of the concerns that people have. That's basically all we're asking for. Because, once again, it's like, and the thing with the DEP, I've tried to get a straight answer. The amount of comments that they get from the public, there is no set amount. It's strictly at their discretion. They can get one letter and say, yeah, we'll have an open meeting or a public meeting, or they can get 300 and say, no, we're not having it. So it's strictly at their discretion.
And I actually have a letter from Richard Picardo, who is the Office of Oil and Gas DEP's attorney, because James Martin does not answer phone calls, especially from me, when I ask questions like, why don't you give citizens the right to question permits, like that Hamlet case that was recently held by in the court system. And in his letter, he says, the DEP is not required to respond or even acknowledge public comments. This is from our West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, who is there to protect, what does their mission statement say, to protect or to make a healthy environment and protect the citizens. They're saying that their policy is they don't even have to acknowledge us when we send in our public comments for wells that are about to be permitted on either our properties or other people's properties. They don't have to give us the time of day, and they say, he said it right in his letter. I mean, I hold on to some of these things I'm collecting from these DEP officials. And it just boggles my mind because they're not protecting us. But the county commission has a tremendous amount of power, if they would exercise it, to protect their citizens, that even the DEP can't do anything about.
Okay.
Or the industry.
They stole water out of the fire hydrant right down at our house by the garage. We have pictures of them taking water out of the fire hydrant. I called the water department the next day, and they allowed one company to take water out of the fire hydrant. And it was not that company. When they realized my husband was taking pictures, they took off. There was 5 trucks lining up there.
Well,
and the other thing is, we found out was when they removed the hose from the fire hydrant, that water that's in that truck back flushes into the fire hydrant, which goes into the water in West Union.
You guys are our protectors.
I think that my comment may have been misconstrued a little while ago. The only thing that I was saying was I wasn't sure if we could pass a resolution because that wasn't necessarily on our agenda. You know, what it's listed here is protest for injection well at Frank's Run. Now, do you think we can pass a resolution that they're asking for?
They're asking for a public comment or a public meeting with DEP concerning Frank's Run, correct?
Right.
For that, but there are other issues.
That's perfectly legal.
Support and write a letter in support of the county residents to be able to get a meeting, to be informed, so that the county residents, the Dodge County people are informed. I don't think anybody here wants to fight what the gas company's doing. They're making money, but let's do it properly. Let's take care of our county residents.
This deals with the agenda item,
Does it?
which sounds like it does.
Okay.
I see no problem with it. You
Okay.
can make whatever resolution you want, as long as it's dealing with the Frank's Run
Okay.
protest issue.
I understand.
Okay.
That was my only issue, that we
Right.
didn't do something that could later be questioned
Right.
about if it wasn't on the agenda.
The other thing that I think everybody should be aware of, if we open up the door for one injection well, one disposal injection well, any hole that is currently in the ground as an oil or gas well, the same thing can happen. And believe me, there are a lot of oil and gas wells in Doddridge County. I think the number's probably over 7,000 now.
You can wind up having people from New York, I mean, we can have 100 girls a month time to hear stuff in.
I would, I've requested this before and I'll request it again, that the county commission look at, as I travel through this country, and I've traveled all over this country, and as I go into townships and so forth, I see signs up, public water supply area, report all spills to 911. Now, in West Virginia, DEP wants you to report all spills to them and they'll make the determination. It's too late, folks.
They don't come out for a week after.
That's right. But any spill from the top of this hill all the way to Salem, from Redemption Hill and down Mead House Fork, that all feeds into this water supply system here that supplies part of the county. And if a spill is at, let's say, on 18 South at Clay Cren's place, you should be able to call 911. The first responder would be to call the water plant and tell them that a truck is in the creek leaking fluid to shut down the intake. The next would be to the sheriff's office to go out and see what happened. And I find nothing wrong with that. And if you'll get the signs, the state highway department will put them up for you. You just got to expend the money for the signs. And they're a standard print.
I know that when the spill occurred on Mead House Fork, I took it upon myself to call the guy at the water plant. He really questioned who I was, etc., and I just kind of explained and said, you know, perhaps you need to call so-and-so. Well, I called him back later in the day. He ended up calling the DEP. The DEP never notified them. And I think the additional things that are occurring, if the emergency squad is going out, I think, because that last one on Christmas Day, I think the emergency squad notified the water plant to shut down just to make it sure it was a safe situation. But the DEP did not take it upon themselves to call. And what, the water supply, what is it? How many people in West Union? What does that water plant, how many people does that supply?
All the towns and all the county jail down to Greenwood.
But they did not. I mean, this guy at the water plant didn't know me from Adam.
With the contamination to the county jail, but I would have a problem with it.
I think the proper thing to do here is to put that on our next agenda, because then we can deal with that.
Well, I think we
The
all
date
feel
will be
that
up.
you should be aware of some of the stuff that's going on, because everything that's happening, especially if you have drilling going on up a hollow, what I've noticed is the stuff that's really visible and it's out in the open, those sites tend to be sort of pristine, or as pristine as they can be. But when you start going up the hollows or in the more removed places and you start taking closer looks, it's really not a good thing. And it's been up to people living close to these areas to call the DEP or to call the EPA.
So are you going to table it to the next meeting about the letter to the DEP, or?
No, that's a separate issue.
No, that's a separate issue.
Okay.
I think we have to place that on the agenda for the next meeting about the notification
911.
Okay.
of 911 of any spills or any situations like that.
That endangers the public water supply.
Yeah.
And I would still like to see signs posted on the public highways identifying the fact that you are entering a public water supply. I don't think that's asking too much.
I think that could be part of the same motion.
You can take that up at your next meeting. I'm just making this as
I
a
did not
suggestion.
know, I did not know that 911 was not called when they had a spill like that or anything. I did not know that.
DEP does not want you to call anybody except them because they want to protect the oil and gas industry, and don't you ever forget
I
it.
never called DEP first. I called Eyes on Drilling, which is the federal hotline to report spills and incidents. And when I called about Meat House Work, so y'all know, when I called Eyes on Drilling and I told them there was a fracking truck, friction reducer truck laying there, and I sent them all my pictures. Because they called back, and it's under investigation by the Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C. for the, the hazardous transport. Because I told them, we've got fracking trucks that are just plunging in the creeks, plunging on the side of the roads, rolling over and everything, and we have no follow-up when it's reported. But I won't waste my time calling the DEP.
That's right.
The only answer
Locally,
is you call the federal people.
the local protocol is if 911 is called, they put the fire departments on it and the emergency squads on it as they're supposed to, as a spill. They go, or as a wreck, they go out, they identify the placard turns around, they call OES director calls it in, then they do whatever the hazardous waste people tells them to do. And that's that is the national hotline that they call.
But you know what, it might
Yeah.
be worthwhile
They
to
do
put
not
as an
have
agenda item
placards
for
on their
next
car.
time, that when there is
Is that
anyone in this county
That
that
was
our
trouble
first
they had.
responders
That's the
go
trouble
on,
we
that
have.
have gone spills.
They don't plaque them.
This is what he was just saying about identifying what's in the things, correct? The
Yeah.
chemicals that are being carried.
We spent almost 2.5 hours figuring out what was in it, because all they would tell me is F
Oh,
off.
they told me
They
when I asked
did
for
not
private.
placard the truck, because it's not a reportable quantity. It is calcium, I think chlorinate. The problem is, they would not provide me with an MSDS sheet.
No, I'm not.
Finally, a couple hours, they finally had a guy off location to run us an MSDS sheet down, which then at that point, I had to threaten to have him arrested because he got threatening with us and tried to throw the fire department off scene.
But we do have
That's what I was
protocols.
gonna say, if I might.
You have
Maybe for an
protocols.
agenda item, the next meeting, an agenda item, that when we have these incidents, and the fire department goes out, and these companies, they shut the rig down that's over by our ridge because they were pulling all the workers to get out there on Meat House Work as fast as they could for damage control. And they turned, they got the state police did his little accident report. He left. The fire department, after they got there and stuck up some diesel, they left. And when we went down there to witness that, the only people there were industry people. I want my local first responder personnel to stay on scene of these kind of incidents and supervise, because we know what the industry's doing when it comes and clears out all the locals so they can run damage control. So maybe that could be an agenda item next time to make a motion that when we have these things, that it's not up to the drillers to dismiss the local people, or local EMS people. Because I kept asking, shouldn't there be an ambulance here? I mean, they're trying to, with this thing, get the rig out, to pull it out. and everybody was sent away, and everybody there, except for a few of us citizens, was the industry person, and one DEP person, and she was their enforcement officer, and when I asked Tom Aloise, did they test the water, since it was friction reducer that was in that truck? And he said, well, we deemed it wasn't necessary, they use special tools or whatever. I mean, does he think I'm stupid? You know, and that's why I say this went to the federal people because of it. And we need to know that our local people will stay on site until they deem that it's okay to leave, not the drillers telling them to leave.
And test the spills.
Yep.
Every time.
I will move that we write a letter in support of the public comment, having a public meeting for public comment prior to the passage of this injection.
When you write, that sheet of paper that I gave you has the identification of that permit application, and that pretty much spells out what you have to note in what you write. You have to have that.
UIC permit application number?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to your motion? Yeah. Have a motion on
And you
it.
have to have your name, address, and phone number. You have to have that identifier on there. So if you're doing it individually, do it that way, or if you want to write it as a commission, I imagine.
This is the DEP, right? That
This
we're
is the West
requesting?
Virginia DEP, the permitting section for the underground injection control wells. And the guy Peterson is, who is over the permitting. Martin is the head of the oil and gas division of the DEP.
He's a joke.
Well, I'm not saying he's not, I'm just trying to explain.
He's a joke.
Okay.
If you have any questions, feel free to, I'll give you my telephone number.
All in
Feel free to give
favor?
me a call.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Ayes have it, motion carried.